Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show, How We Grow. This is your essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business. With advice and insights from the best in the biz, I'm your host, Lynell Gordon. Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show. We are thrilled today on this episode. I have a fellow data junkie. He has experience using data in the insurance industry, tourism industries to grow revenue and optimize efficiency. I'm thrilled to have Bryant Loy, really smart guy. Guys, this is going to be so good. He is the Director of Revenue Management and Distribution at Brett Robinson Vacation Rentals, where he oversees the pricing, revenue management, distribution for nearly 1,800 vacation rental units along Alabama's Gulf Coast. So since he has experience with the insurance and tourism industries, he is very data-driven, and he's focused on, and you're going to hear this throughout, optimizing efficiency and maximizing revenue. We're going to talk a bunch about ways to make money for your company. He's worked with major companies, guys like Kaiser Realty, Wyndham Vacation Rentals, Vacasa, and he specializes in analytics and revenue management. And I just love the fact that we were able to have you come and share knowledge and wisdom with us. Welcome, Bryant.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Gosh, I got to tell you, I was just thrilled to have someone who love to use data to make decisions. So many people don't. You know that. What are you you're passionate about making money for your company? And I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's the big thing here, right?
Okay, let's do that.
We want to make our, not just the company money, but obviously our owners are who keeps us alive as a company. So we've got about 1,770 properties here in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, and so our number one goal is to make sure those people are making a good investment, that they're making good money on. They want to continue to rent that property with us and invite their friends to rent their properties with us. And as we build a new building and we get a new set of people, that we're convincing a good chunk of those owners who are buying at these buildings to be a part of our program. So I mean that's a lot of it. In terms of personal life, I love to coach. I've got 3 sons, 12-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Coach them in youth sports. Just signed up to run my first marathon because I finished running a couple half marathons over the past couple of months that have kind of kept me moving and doing stuff like that. So I like to just stay active with the boys and do stuff like that. And then we like to really, a lot of what is really cool about working with the company I work with is a lot of times we're trying to figure out cool new ways to kind of do things a little differently. And so for us, a lot of times it's not always just about the money, right? It's about making sure that people are comfortable with us and that they're feeling educated, that they know, what we're doing to make sure that they are, we are making as much money, and not only that we're making as much money, but that we're doing things in an intelligent way to make sure that they're taken care of. So, what we like to do is on our website, we've got this blog that our revenue management team does. It's goes out and just talks about here's what we're seeing for spring, here's what we're seeing for summer, here's how the winter looks, and it's some of it's stuff internally, just hey, here's how pacing looks versus last year for our snowbird season, and here's what you can kind of expect as you kind of get into the snowbird season. So we may do that in November, December, as we kind of approach the snowbird season, and kind of tell them, here's what you can expect, here's how things go. If you have questions about, whether you want to offer snowbird rates or not, give us a call and things like that. So we do things like that. Then also, as we kind of get into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we run these big sales. So we kind of give everybody an update. Okay, here's what we saw during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Here's demand pockets that look good for next year. Here's demand pockets that don't look good for next year. Understand if we make rate adjustments for you, here's why we're making those rate adjustments. You may see that your rate for this same week this year is not the same as it was same week last year. That's a demand thing. It's not we don't think your property's worth it thing. And here's why we're making those adjustments. And, we're seeing market wide that this is happening, or, hey, we've noticed that we're one of the few people who have caught this one week where there's this festival that's really popping this year. So we're going to go ahead and bump the rates there because we're going to take advantage of it. So, that educational side to make sure the owners know, we host a quarterly call with them where we let them answer or ask us questions that we can answer about, here's what we're seeing across our market. Here's what we're seeing across our company. Here's what here's what the Northwest Florida market's seeing. Here's what Myrtle Beach is looking, because we may pull data for that. And so, we try to just make sure we do a really good job of educating our owners because that's the number one way to make sure that they feel better about their property is if they understand what we're doing more so than just getting, answers to questions they're mad about because they're going to get, if they don't understand why we're making a rate drop for this week in March because we've seen that there's no spring breaks that year in our feeder markets, they're just going to think that we don't know what we're doing. And so we kind of try to make sure that they understand why we do some of the things we do. That's a lot of what we do here is we just want to make sure we're communicating as well as we can. And, we do a monthly newsletter out to owners from, the president of the company writes a little piece, revenue management writes a piece, the maintenance team writes a piece, the housekeeping team writes a piece. And like everybody just kind of puts it out there so that everybody knows that, we're working for them.
If you had one piece of advice, say you can only give someone, you have, 5 minutes, and someone says, look, I know that what you do, you make money for your company. What's the number one thing that I need to do to make money for my company?
Figure out what your data is telling you. And a lot of people don't have, I guess, necessarily the time or the skill set to get their data in order in a lot of places. But I will tell you the first thing we did when I came to Brett Robinson, first thing I did when I came down to Kaiser, which ended up being Wyndham and Vacasa later. Was get that information from our property management systems and just really understand what's there because there's so much information that is available outside of the reports you can download, right? I mean, there's great reports you can download from any of the property management systems. But what we do is we like to get that information. So what we're able to do is, just get your information into a place where you can really dive in and then find somebody who loves the data as much as a lot of people in this revenue management field love the data so they can tell you what it's telling you. Especially you start to scale up, right? You start to scale up to a point where you got a company like us that we're trying to optimize. Okay, what's the right total revenue model for us as a company? Is it to sell a bunch of 7-night Saturday to Saturday stays, or is it to do 3 and 4-night stays and 5 and 3-night stays and put those together across this Tetris board of a summer season or a spring break season and fill in a bunch more arrivals, departures, and get those additional, reservations fees and clean fees and processing fees and things like that, because that's a part of what makes your company money as well. It's not just that percent of commission that you're getting from the reservation itself and the rent itself. It's all those other pieces too.
Yeah.
And so, I would just encourage you to understand what the best way for your company to operate is. For us, we have a great operations team that is able to go in and churn out and get those cleans done. We have a great website company that built our website that's kind of local to the area that we feel really good about. It's like in terms of what we're trying to do there is we're trying to just pick the brains of other people who are in the industry who also have great ideas that we may not be taking advantage of. What are you guys doing to reach out to your spring break markets that we may be able to take advantage of? Or is there something you guys are able to look at that, you do to get people to your website better than we do? Because we spend a gazillion dollars getting people to our website. We're really kind of a bit of a unicorn in the industry that we're only 10 to 15% on the OTAs. And so we're a very heavy,
Direct booking.
Big digital presence on getting people to our website, getting them into our call center and getting things booked through those channels for the most part. But, we're just looking for those little nuggets, right? Like when we go to a conference, we're trying to find what's that one thing that can get us 1% better at this. And what's that one thing that can get us 1% better at that? Because 1% for us means a whole bunch of money typically. So
100%.
So
I had an expert on recently to talk about how to make the most of the conferences that you go to.
mhm,
He came from the conference scenario. That's his background. And
mhm,
now he's a vendor now, but he speaks to how to get the best bang for your buck as a property manager when you go. And I think
mhm.
it's a really good, and I think that is actually coming out. It's Jamie King. So that'll be a fun one to listen
Pay
to.
attention to that one because
There's
that's one that we could use because we send 3, 4, 5 people to these conferences and all of them have kind of different things in mind, right? And everyone has a different goal on what they're trying to get out of the conference. And some of it is honestly for us maintaining very good vendor relationships too, right? Like you're up there and you're talking to people who, you're going to be negotiating a contract with down the line, and they may ask us, can you jump on for a panel? And, like last week I was on a panel Wheelhouse doing something, and a couple weeks before that, just with Price Labs doing something. So we want to be good partners to them too, right? We want to try to share some of the things that we're seeing and using their systems, or things that we're seeing to kind of educate other people in the industry, while also taking advantage of the fact that we're learning something on all those too, right? Like we go on to those. I'm not the only person who knows what's going on in revenue management in this industry. I want to learn, what is that guy in Holden Beach doing? What's that person over in the ski market doing differently than what we're doing? And could we use that as an off-season strategy over here? Does it not work? How do the fly markets work versus we're a very drive centric market? Is there something we could take advantage of as our airport starts to open up some commercial flights down to the area? And so there's a lot of good stuff you can learn by having those good relationships and being able to jump on and be a part of those types of things. And so, that's part of what I find valuable with it. And so, I like the conferences, but I also like not having to travel too.
No, I
so
know.
it's
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
The market here is similar to your market. We have very high direct booking and return rate. People like to come to the area. They like to come back next year. I had someone on to speak about direct booking. That's all we talked about was direct booking. And that's their expertise. So there is a 20-minute podcast on that if you want to listen to that. I found it fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But you see these white couches behind me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have this huge upstairs kids room that has bunk beds everywhere, playroom. I have kids all over this. With the new materials that are out there to keep things clean, you can spill wine, you can get Kool-Aid on this and wipe it off. Now, I didn't believe it. I have to tell you, when my contractor put it in, my sister runs a property management company. It's called Hobbs Realty. She runs a family company. And when she looked at it, she said, I cannot believe this is my rental home. This is not my home. This is my rental home. I mean, I own it, but I don't live here. I rent it as much as I can, just saying. So I bought extra cushions for this couch, thinking that even with the PPP, even with any of the insurance, that I was going to end up having to replace my couches the first year. And I can tell you they're pristine. And I have a set of recovers in the owner's closet upstairs that I haven't had to use. So with good maintenance on a home, that any kind of insurance is more profitable. So, I mean, there are ways to,
Yep.
The reason I say it is because when you think of revenue models and how to make more money in your company, generally we think of exactly what I just told you. Here's 100% of it, you get to keep it. I will tell you a hint. There are people that charge $20 a night for it. They do. And I think the cost on it is very low. And so you can make what you want. You can multiply that by what you'd like, by what your market would bear. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't see it seems to me to be the best product out there, other than, that and the cancel for any reason. I just love insurance products. I'm just saying those are good ways to make bunches of money, like, being self-insured. Our family used to do that. When I first came home with that idea with my sister, we're in North Carolina. We're very heavily regulated.
Yep.
You have heavy regulations too in your area.
Yeah.
So we had to be very careful on how to do that, but we switched for this reason, because it gave us more money. We got more money in the long run. We put more money in our pocket.
Yep.
So when we think about revenue, a lot of times we think about, like what you and I just discussed, direct revenue. But when you
Yep.
talk about the fabrics that homeowners use in their home that cause less damage, or things that they can do that cause less damage in their home, that also is money in your pocket, even with self-insurance or with the PPP, either one. So I think a lot of times we have a lot of levers we can pull to make money as a property manager. But a lot of times we leave it on the table not to think about what we can do to save money and not have to pour out that self-insurance, because you've given your homeowners access to these types of things, these fabrics, these different paints that you can put on that cause more longevity and less damage to a home. So you don't have to pay out as much.
And so for us, we may have days in the summer, we have 500 back-to-backs that we're knocking out at the property levels. And, part of our team's job is to also let people know, hey, here's what we're going to have a 500 person or 500 back-to-back day, so they can prepare and make sure that we're staffed correctly for it. Because there's times where we need to go out and get additional help in the market on top of what we do have internally, if we do have a 500 back-to-back day or a 600 back-to-back day. And so understand your data so that you can understand what will make you the most money would be the thing that I think is definitely the most important piece to understand if you were looking for one piece.
This episode of How We Grow is sponsored by RevMax, the premier full-service revenue management system. Built for vacation rental managers who are looking for a market edge, RevMax offers data-driven tools and services that will increase revenue and drive more profit. Connect with their revenue management experts at getrevmax.com and discover their full-service revenue management solution. Well, and if you have people that are planning, if you have people that are good in operations, they're going to see ahead. Like people that are renting from you, you're a direct booking mark. Well, you do a lot of direct booking. So you probably know how far are you booked for July, August, and June, July, August. How much of that is already booked? Let me just say it's March. How much of that's already booked?
Not a ton for us. We're 1 to 4 bedroom condos. So
so
we
you're
are
last minute market.
smaller inventory. So we actually are closer to, 15, 20% for some of those weeks. Some of them are up to 30, 40% now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not so the beach market, the beach house market, like if we were 5, 6, 7 bedroom homes, those should be pretty well booked up for the summer at this point,
Right.
or they're in a little bit of trouble, especially the 10, 12 bedroom, the crazy large, really big ones. But for us, I mean, we find that during the summer, we actually just did a little presentation on this not too long ago for our owners. We had a summer last year where almost half of our bookings were within 30 days of arrival.
We saw that all over.
So it's tricky. Exactly. That wasn't just us.
Even in and that's been like 2 years that we started seeing that happening. But even in markets where we see 180-day bookings, normally we saw 30-day bookings. A lot happened, and we're just like, we didn't think we were going to fill it. So a lot of people put everything on special, and tried to fill it before then. And then you had those that waited it out. Now this is not an uncommon issue in property management. I can remember 20 years ago when Scott Leggett would say to me, we'd be talking about revenue management. This is a long time ago. You still talked about it. And you tried to decide, as that booking window, was it soft? Because what's happening with, like, a lot of people from the area that he was in are government workers. So right now, we know what just happened in Washington. So we have, for every one government worker, we have 14 government contractors. So we're looking to see, is our market soft because they're going to do it last minute? And yes, it was. And no, he did not put it on special. And he made a ton more money than everybody else in the market that did it differently. So you're in a market that you really have to be smart about your data because of the booking window.
Yes. We have to understand what weeks are going to fill out. Like, what weeks do you know you're going to end up with 90+% occupancy, and what weeks are you not sure about? Because those weeks you're not sure about, you should go ahead and get those rates down to a sellable rate pretty quickly, because you're not sure. It's an unknown factor that you just kind of have to plan for, playing that market share game, right? But there are several weeks throughout the year, 10, 12, 14 weeks in this market, where we're talking 90+% occupancies. And those weeks, if you panic and you make those decisions to drop those rates or dump those rates, because again, you may have to drop rates but not dump them in a lot of cases. If you make those overarching decisions, say, okay, we got to drop everything 30% because nothing's moving for this week right now, and you're pretty sure it's going to be a 90+% occupancy week, you're probably leaving a bunch of money on the table, because what you're doing is you're selling to people who are already going to buy at whatever rate. You're selling to a few more of those people, but not enough. And so, because one of the things that we always have to talk about is, when we're dropping rates right now, what is that doing to us? Are we actually gathering enough additional bookings, or are we just giving everyone who's already going to book a big deal?
Exactly.
Because if we're not increasing that conversion rate something pretty seriously on our side, then we're just giving away stuff.
Okay.
And
so I'm going to speak to your homeowners right now. Okay. Because you understand that. And so does my family, who actually rents my house. And I'll tell you a story. And it's this year, exactly what you're talking about. So my husband and I had a catastrophe happen in this house. Not last summer, but the summer before it. We missed a whole summer of rentals. And so it was a huge deal that we fill out. Okay. And when something happens like that, you miss, like, people that return, you miss your return renters. So you're telling your homeowners, guys, have confidence in me and listen to me. And I wish, so my husband, we had 1 week that was open at the end of season. Ours are, we have a large home. It has to book up in advance. So we had 1 week open. And my husband mentioned to my sister, he's like, you know, I I really need it all rented this week, this year. So what do you think she did? She said, okay, I'll rent it. Give them a 10% discount. So here's what we have. Like almost 12,000 this week, 8,000 this week, 12,000 this week, right in the middle. And it's exactly what you're talking about. So when he looked at it on the owner's calendar, he was like, why is this one so much less? I said, you told her to rent it. It's rented.
It is.
So homeowners, you have to trust people like Bryant. It's for real, because they know what they're doing. Chill and let them handle it. If they tell you or give you advice, you should listen. That's just my 2 cents on that.
I agree, but on the other side, revenue managers, it's their property too. So if they tell you to do it, go ahead and drop it, because again, you're not gonna get any more mad than if you just say, hey, we got to hold it. Then you just leave it sitting open too. So it's got to be that back and forth relationship, right? If the homeowner says, I want to do this, we got to listen to them and say, hey, here, what I like to do is say, if it were my property, because that's the way that I have to look at this. If it were my property, here's what I would do. I would wait 3 more weeks before I would make that decision. And then I would go ahead and drop the rate, because I still think that gives us enough runway to do this. But yes, I mean, I think it's very important to understand that the level of information that we're processing in here, I mean, we've got everything from the market, we've got everything internally. We have, because we have such an enormous amount of web traffic and bookings that come in directly through our website. I mean, we track things like what does our Saturday arrival conversion rate look like? What does our Friday conversion rate look like? And just so we can understand, are we seeing that we're overpricing certain days of the week, or are we making it to where it's too difficult for somebody who wants that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that's the most popular stay in our inventory. That Thursday through Sunday arrival, is there something going on where it's booking too fast right now? We need to bump our weekend rates a little higher. And so we're constantly trying to measure that kind of information. And that's something, as a homeowner, you should never have to think about that, because you're trusting that somebody like our team does understand that and does understand what we're doing, and is looking at that stuff on a granular enough level to kind of make sure that you guys are maximizing that revenue for yourselves.
Let's talk about this. So for property managers you obviously have a very good finger on the pulse of what's happening based on the things that you've said, Brett. So what advice would you give to companies who don't have a property manager? Don't have a revenue manager, and or they're doing it themselves, or they've tasked it to someone and it's their part-time job. And give me the most important stats that you think they need to track, and how often.
To me, there's a couple things. So it's going to depend on the size of your company, right? So if you're a larger company, you probably have your own revenue team. So I'm going to assume that in most cases, if you're somebody who's kind of just outsourcing this, or has somebody who's kind of like the marketing person kind of does it and whatever else, that you're kind of a smaller company. So what you're going to need to understand is you're going to need to understand what's going on in the market. So you're going to need to get something like a key data. You're going to need to get something like a, Air DNA, is another company that does some of this stuff. Exactly. There's these different companies that can do it. You're going to need to get one of them or a couple of them to kind of look at your information, to understand what's going on in the market, because what you're looking at year over year isn't enough to make sure that your revenue is on the right path for the year. So you're going to need to look at some of that external data. You are going to need to track your internal pacing, though. I mean, you have to understand that a lot of owners don't want to take less for this year for the week of July 4th than they made last year. And so you need to start off making sure that, like, hey, my key weeks that I've got good rates that are going to make me additional money, until you realize that you look at the market and everybody's down for this week, you need to make an adjustment, or vice versa. You see everything's going crazy and you can get another 15, 20%. And so you got to get that market level data if you're a smaller company. Key metrics, you're going to have to look at your occupancy, your ADR, and your RevPAR. Occupancy, average daily rate, ADR, RevPAR, revenue per available room night, or really RevPAN is our industry's better way of calling it. We look a lot at lead time, because that's an important thing for us to understand. We have a shorter length of stay typically than most people, but you're going to want to understand whether the market's shifting. One thing that I would recommend with smaller companies in particular, if you can handle it, look and see if you can be a market disruptor on your length of stay. If everybody in your market's doing 7 nights, see if you can charge 15% more and get 4 nights and 3 nights across that, because people pay more for a 4 night stay per night than they will for a 3 night stay.
I want you to just, I want you to repeat that, especially the last part, because I think that this is too often missed in our industry. So if you'd repeat that.
Yeah, if everyone in your market has a strict length of stay, it's 7 nights, or maybe it's 2 weeks for certain markets, and it's not regulated, right? So it's not regulated by your city. I know some cities do the 7 night, 14 night, whatever else. But if you have the ability to be a disruptor and be the one company that can offer, or one of a few companies that can offer a 3 night and a 4 night, or even just 2 3 nights that equal more than that 7 night stay, because you're getting people to pay that additional per night rate, it's good. It's good. And it's good for you as a company.
It's money.
Because you're getting double fees on all of those reservations as well. So
and it's less use for the homeowner's home.
Mm-hmm.
It's less use on the homeowner's home. I have tried so hard to speak to this, and it falls on deaf ears, guys. So please listen. You could make a whole business, a whole property management company in some of these markets where it's a 7 night market, going in and charging, like he said, more for less. And people will pay it. I mean, it's proven. If you look at the statistical data, it's there. So I think that's fabulous. I'm so glad you said that, because
and there's even some, I mean, some of the companies, I think RevMax, actually, you can set like a 7 night rate and let somebody book 3 nights for the 7 night rate. And if somebody wants to do it, let them do it. Then everything you make for the additional 3 or 4 nights on that time period is absolute profit. And so for the homeowner and for you.
So I have a story about that really quick. Same exact thing using RevMax. We're a 7 night market. I grew up here. This is where I'm from. It's a 7 night market. And I said to Rochelle, use me as a test case. I'm an oceanfront rental. Use me as a test case. Don't have a minimum stay for this particular time period, and see what happens. And I literally got like a 9 night stay that was paid. It was through RevMax, right? She turned it on, and I immediately got like this 9 night stay at the end of the season, because everything else was booked. And I went, boy, that was nice to have in September.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that you allowed leniency in that policy, but it's really hard to change a mindset.
It is. A lot of people, part of it is educating your owners and letting them understand why you'd want to do that, and making sure that you're explaining your reasoning and that it's sound. Because if you're just saying like, oh, we just want to see what happens, that's not a very convincing way of putting it. All right. You got to go out there and say, here's what we're seeing. There's a market inefficiency here. We can take advantage of it. It's going to make you more money, because we can tell based on the web data, there's a ton of people looking for 5 night stay. There's a ton of people looking for 4 night stays.
Right.
We know that we can take advantage of that market because nobody else is. And so let's take advantage of that 30% of stays that are being not satisfied right now.
So it's a complete balance. This is what I really wrote down. It's a balance between increasing revenue and homeowner relations. So making sure your homeowner, that communication that you talked about, the education and communication of your homeowners, my goodness, that I would be interested. I'm not asking. I would be so interested in knowing some of your data as far as, keeping your homeowners. There's a word, I can't pull it up in my head.
Keeping them happy. Just keeping them happy.
Just keeping them happy. So if you could look back over your shoulder, and you could say, gosh, I wished if I'd only done this differently, if I'd only done this sooner, if I'd only done this in my work, I'd be so much further ahead than I was. What kind of mistakes can you look back and say, gosh, I'm never going to do that again?
Yeah. Let me think. So one of the things that I would say initially internally, just because we are such a large company, is a lot of times right when I got here, we would really not lean into the market data well enough. And we would really focus on what's going on internally, which is important for us because we have nearly 1,800 properties, like I mentioned, but you don't catch things that are like industry-wide or, market-wide trends as well if you're just focused on what's going on internally. And so, understanding, making sure you get rate shops more regularly and doing things like that, I would have definitely opened myself up more to understanding what's going on around me much more quickly than initially we did. Which again, granted, it's only the last 5 years or so that key data has really jumped into this market and made it easy to do that stuff. But either way, I used to run these Excel rate scraper tools that I would go out and pull things from different websites and things like that. I would have leaned more into that stuff early because I feel like the competitive advantage you have by understanding the outside market when nobody else does, because again, a
Right.
tool like Key didn't
Right.
exist, would have been much easier for us to take advantage of in those first early years. Outside of that, the other thing is I would have done a better job of, so our team being the data team, because we're revenue management and analytics, but we also have to understand and help a lot of other departments in their areas just because we're a very data centric team and we're very keen on understanding, how, you know, we forecast the arrivals and departures for our operations team so they understand where these key dates are going to be. And we would have jumped into that a little bit more quickly so we could have been a little more efficient early in the process because it's really just the last 2 or 3 years that we've gotten into forecasting, 3 or 4 weeks out, how many cleans we're going to have for this building, this building, this building, this building, and building out the models for that. So understanding that stuff a little bit earlier would have definitely helped us as a company be better at what we were doing. And yeah, wish we could have gotten there sooner.
I remember back when we did the spreadsheets, and we used to keep spreadsheets of all the properties on the beach. Not this beach. I don't know how Rochelle used to do it years ago because I wasn't internal at that time. I was doing her website only. I owned a tech company, and we were writing tools. But I remember that there's a company that was in Emerald Isle, North Carolina, and this guy used to have a spreadsheet like you're talking about, and he would have every home on the beach by number of bedrooms, by amenity, and he would track what their booking window was year over year. So, I mean, he had elaborate spreadsheets. His name was John, and he was very successful,
Mhm.
because he did what you talked about. He took the data into operations, and he said, okay,
Yep.
we can forecast from this. So I think he came out of the econ world and brought that in. So I think that's very, very good advice. And guys, there's so much data today. I mean, and it's not expensive to have that. There's so many products that if you're not using it, you're losing not market share, but you're losing out on revenue because you
Mhm.
cannot forecast what you need to charge for something without this data nowadays. You just can't.
Yeah.
There are tools that do it for you, but they don't do it all for you, like RevMax that we talked about. You know, I've known people that have automated it, and I've known people that meet weekly still with their team. They offer like personalized service where you can sit down and they do these meetings and they actually train your revenue managers, which is really a great way to train.
Mhm.
And also, like you talk about meeting other people at conferences like you, this is what they do. If someone wanted to reach out to you, would you talk to them about?
Yeah, I mean, we so with the data and revenue management conference, they did a really cool thing with the RevProf organization where they set up mentor-mentee relationships this year, and so that was a great opportunity. I've got a mentee who works in the Northwest Florida market that I meet with on at least a monthly basis, and usually we text a little bit more often than that. This is an industry where most of us want to help each other and get
Agree,
better at what we're doing. And I love
100%.
that that's how it is because that's how it should be. There shouldn't be a big fight. Listen, I'm not going to go meet with other people in my market and teach them how to beat us and things, but I mean, I am gonna want to listen and talk to people who are all over the place and see how can we get 1% better. It's about 1% better in a bunch of different ways because that stuff adds up, especially as you get to scale up to a pretty good size. 1% can mean a lot of really good stuff for you. And so, yeah, no, absolutely. If somebody wanted to reach out to me, they can absolutely. I'm gonna give them a better way to reach me than an email because it's gonna get lost in the endless supply of things.
Mine
But
does too.
I can give them my cell phone number to text me be a much better way because I can actually keep track of those a little bit better
Can
than
they
the.
reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yes, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn too.
Do
Yes.
that because we have a lot of people that we get like 70,000 downloads minimum
Mm.
a month for these podcasts. So I
Yes.
don't,
Hit me on LinkedIn
I'm not going to stick your, we're going to hit him up on LinkedIn. Loy is his last name, Loy. Um, I would, if you would like, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have one of your favorite homeowner or, I actually would like one of your homeowner stories and I'll tell you why. Because of the amount of communication that you have, and the education that you give and these quarterly meetings that you have with your homeowners. I want a homeowner story. Tell me one of your favorite homeowner stories.
So let me think. One of my favorite homeowner stories is let's think. We have a homeowner that has a very unique property with us. He's got a 5 bedroom. He took 2 what we call pod units at this really nice bayfront property we have. Got both of those things kind of knocked out the wall in between, created this big, massive. Really, the best way to really think of it is it's a mansion in a condo building, which is a really weird, unique situation. But as such, we had to really have a lot of one-on-one contact with him early because it's a very unique property that we had to kind of handle a little differently. You know, we have to handle deposits differently, parking passes differently. Obviously, the rate's going to be different, maintenance, cleaning, everything is just very unique with this person. So pretty quickly in the process, he's obviously working with the acquisitions and the onboarding team. He's working with different places. But him and I just kind of clicked we talked about revenue strategy and
He's a data
here's how we're gonna
guy.
do this. He is. And so he's actually a lieutenant colonel in the army. So like he's a really, really good dude. And so what we ended up doing is we just clicked really quick and we sat down and we kind of worked through, okay, here's what the strategy is for the revenue. Here's what it is for, here's how we're going to make sure the maintenance works, and just kind of working him through that process and everything. And now this dude calls me, at least once a week just to catch up, ask about the family, ask about everything else. And so building those positive relationships, right? That relationship where that guy is a part of the team, a part of the family now. He has his guy at the company that he calls and stuff like that. That's always just that's kind of what it's about. Now you can't do that with 500 people because you'd never have time to actually do your real job. But it's good because he'll just shoot me a text and be like, "Hey, running any races this week?" Things like that. And so just having that one-on-one connection. If you're looking for something more business related,
no, you've made me cry. You have. You've touched my heart, and I think that's the heart of what we do. You've said, well, it's about relationships with your homeowners, and you've just talked about it. And I believe that because you've just given me a great example of a guy that now is your friend. He's your homeowner, but he's your friend too.
Yep.
And you've also talked about the fact that you have a mentor-mentee relationship. I am really grateful to meet you. And I really pray that God will continue to bless you in what you do. It's obvious you care and you're a really smart guy. And I hope that people will listen to what you've said and take away, write down some takeaways, because I think we can learn from everyone. There's something we can learn from everyone, whether it be good or bad. There are things that we can learn. Is there anything else you'd like to share with property managers?
No, I again, really appreciate the chance to be on the show and to talk to you and to be a part of this industry. It's a really cool industry. Love this industry.
It is a great industry. It is. And the best, and the best of the best people I find are here.
Yes.
And if you can just find those homeowners that you can make friends with, those are lasting friends. He'll never leave the program unless he sells it, but you'll always be friends with him. I think that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being with us. And I really appreciate it. This episode of How We Grow was brought to you by RevMax. To find out more about how RevMax can help to grow your vacation rental business, visit getrevmax.com. Make sure to search for How We Grow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.